afternoon. Hope you're enjoying your Sunday. Welcome to another episode of the Zig Zone, Falcon Media Sports Network and WBGU 88.1 FM's flagship show, taking you through everything going on in the world of Bowling Green Falcon athletics. I'm Holden Ruck, as always, your host from the Falcon Media Sports Network. I say as always, but back from a brief week hiatus, and I'm joined today by Foster Rosti, a talented analyst as well from Falcon Media Sports Network. How you doing, Foster?
I'm doing good. Good to be here today.
Glad to have you here. Much like Ben Korak and Noah Celia last week, running a two-man show today. So we're going to take you through everything that's been going on, and there's a lot going on, as always. A couple of seasons starting to wind down, but I don't think any story more notable right now than the Falcon volleyball team. Friday marked the beginning of the 2025 MAC tournament for volleyball. The Falcons, after struggling with some injuries throughout the regular season, managed to fight their way into the 6th seed spot in that tournament and even make a convincing win over Ohio in the opening round. In fact, getting the sweep over I think they won in 4.
It was a 3-1 victory over the Bobcats, right. The number 3 seeded Bobcats. Yeah.
So the big upset over, the higher seeded team, a really impressive showing. And the reason I got mixed up there is because it was close to a sweep. Mm-hmm. The one set that the Falcons dropped, they led in early. And, it was a very, very close back and forth bout, but they were able to get it done there. And ultimately, they go into day 2, and they're matched up against the number 2 seeded Western Michigan Broncos with a chance to punch their ticket, knowing that if they are to win, they'll face the rival Toledo Rockets, a team that they've split with this year in the championship. And Western Michigan, for the third year now in a row, took care of business. And how gutting does that have to be for this Falcons team?
It's got to be the worst, because it's not just like they're losing these games, it's they're losing them in the biggest moments, second round championship of the tournament. They're losing these games in just such high energy placements that it's got to be like the worst feeling for them, that they're just losing in high leverage situations.
And for a team with the expectations this team had, even despite being derailed during the regular season, that's got to just weigh heavily. This is your last chance to make a run at it at home in front of your fans with Lauren Hovey and Belle Lauby and Jessica Andrews. And while you've got a lot of talent returning, you still have to wonder what if, and look back on the season, before those injuries, would a favorable seed have changed things in the outrun or in the long term? Maybe not. But even so, it's something that just has to truly weigh heavily, despite even seeing the return of Lauren Hovey in tournament play, who in particular played quite well in their win over the Ohio Bobcats.
Oh yeah, they're all going to think about what they could have done or what could have been done differently during the regular season or before injuries happened to win certain games that they were close in. But at the end of the day, you got to play who's in front of you, and you got to beat the team that you're matched up against. And the Falcons just against Western Michigan just couldn't do it again. And this is a team that seems to have our number in volleyball year in and year out.
Absolutely. You look at the last 3 seasons of MAC tournament appearances for the Falcons. 2 years ago, the 2023 tournament, the Falcons lost in 5 sets in the championship game championship match, I should say, against the Western Michigan Broncos. I believe that one was in Kalamazoo. 2024, the Falcons are at home last year, and they drop their match after getting a bye as the 1 seed against the lower seeded Western Michigan Broncos. Logan Case once again wins the tournament MVP as the Broncos go on to win that tournament. And as we speak right now, the Toledo Rockets and Western Michigan Broncos are tipping off any time, or have probably already tipped off, to compete for the MAC title here. An interesting little tidbit: if Western Michigan is to win, it would be their 3rd straight volleyball conference title. Really, really impressive stuff. If Toledo were to win, it would be their first MAC volleyball title in program history.
Yeah, a lot to play for on both sides there. Going for the three-peat, getting there first if you're Toledo. That's, both teams going to be playing high energy, ready to go. They're going to come out with a lot of energy. You're going to see, those teams really diving, leaving it all out on the floor tonight.
Absolutely. We're going to take you through more of how the actual tournament has played out, what happened with Bowling Green, what happened with the other teams, and hear comments from volleyball head coach Alex Del Piombo after the team's exit following their loss to the Western Michigan Broncos. But all that's coming up after a brief break for station identification. So don't go anywhere, because you're still listening to the Zig Zone on WBGU 88.1 FM.
You are listening to Falcon Media Sports Network coverage on WBGU 88.1 FM in Bowling Green, Ohio.
The morning show on WBGU FM is brought to you by the Bowling Green Chamber of Commerce. For more information, contact The Morning Show at themorningshow@bgchamber.net. Send them any programming suggestions or information you might have. They are always looking for show ideas and guests. To have your birthday or anniversary announced, email or call the Bowling Green Chamber of Commerce at 419-353-7945. The Morning Show on WBGU.
We're back here on the Zig Zone. Holden Ruck, joined by Foster Rostite, and we're going to take you through sort of the way that the MAC volleyball tournament has played out. So, firstly, on Friday night, the opening match, the Toledo Rockets got a win over the Miami Redhawks in a long 5-set bout, really, really tightly contested. The first set went to the Redhawks, winning 25-21, attacking at a .345 mark, which was almost more than 0.1 above Toledo's. So a really efficient first set for them. And the Rockets also had 4 more errors than the Redhawks did, 7 as compared to 3. So, I mean, very, very clean play. Miami, a really good team, looking into this tournament, certainly no slouch by any means. The 5th seed, so, I mean, the only team, or the lowest team not named Bowling Green, but I mean, still in the tournament for a reason. The Rockets responded really big in the second set. 25-14 was the margin of victory in that one, and that certainly made it feel like that Toledo was going to win. I mean, you've got such an even bout in that first set. I didn't really have a strong inkling of which team was necessarily playing better or actually better. It felt like it was just a competitive one, could go the distance, probably would. Watching the second set really made it feel like, okay, this is Toledo's match to lose. Going into the third one, 25-19, the Redhawks once again go up 2-1, looking to potentially end it in 4. But Toledo responded 25-23. Facing elimination, they got a 2-point victory despite hitting less efficiently. Both teams very inefficient compared to the rest of the match during that set. Miami hit at .178 to Toledo's .106. The only set of this match, where the less efficient attacking team actually won the set. So I thought that was really, really weird.
You watch Toledo play this season. They've been a very good defensive first team. They do like to get a lot of blocks to get their offense rolling and just shut down the other team first. So you really see that they kind of come out slow offensively, but it's really their defense that's doing work, and they kind of shut down other teams first, and then they start to figure out their offenses.
And this really is something that we did start to see as it progressed, and inevitably in the 5th set, the Redhawks would take an early lead of 6-2, and at that point I really thought, well, this one's kind of over. But you can certainly never count out any team in a tournament type setting, and the Rockets proved that. They rattled off 3 straight points, inevitably equalizing at 7-7, and after that the Rockets didn't look back, and they punched their ticket to the semifinals with a 15-11 victory, winning that 4th and 5th set facing elimination. I mean, good stuff from them. I think a lot of people probably became clearer, yeah, this is a really good team. Mm-hmm. I think it opened a lot of eyes, and sure.
I think those back-to-back wins on the brink of elimination, that shows you what this team is really going to be about. When they get their backs against the wall, they're not going to give up. They're going to really fight and put the pressure on that other team, whoever it may be, to really make sure that they have to execute perfectly against this Toledo Rockets team.
Absolutely. Notably, Toledo Rockets freshman Jessica Koslau paced the entire match with 22 kills, mark only tied by Miami's Molly Creech, also a freshman. So it's really impressive stuff from 2 freshmen who are going to be dominating the MAC for a while, I would imagine. But really impressive in that win, and for her to continue in the tournament. I mean, definitely a threat. Oh,
yeah. Seeing a freshman, this is their first year in the tournament, stepping up in such a high level of situation, that's going to show you really next season what to build off of, how to prepare for the tournament next year, because you expect both these teams, they're going to be back, they're going to have good teams, they have good coaches, they've been historically good teams, that they'll be back and they'll be ready to push for another tournament run.
For sure. After that, Bowling Green played the Ohio Bobcats in the second game of the opening night on Friday night. Lauren Hovey made a long-awaited return to the starting lineup and quickly showed her dominance. I mean, Lauren Hovey, for as much time as she missed, there was wonders, are we going to see her play again this season? Are we going to see her play again at all? Is she going to be able to play at the level that we're used to? And boy, did she. She opened the match 8 for 8 on kills, including with back-to-back aces during an 8-2 start to the second set for the Falcons, which is where it really just felt like they were running away with that one. And they kind of never looked back.
Yeah, and those 2 back-to-back aces, that's what we expect from Lauren Hovey. She's, one of the better set or offensive pieces, especially when it comes to serving. She can just get those aces in, and that really helps open up the offense for Bowling Green.
Hovey ultimately finished with 18 kills on the night. I mean, for somebody who, we didn't even know going to the night until I saw a message from Ben Korak saying Hovey's playing tonight on Friday. I had no expectation that we were going to see her play during the tournament. You were hoping, but there was no way to know until we saw it. But I mean, what a return performance there.
Yeah, and just maybe her holding out until that tournament time. The team looked like they were going to make it the entire time. Just kind of staying back, waiting, practicing with the team, and then getting into the tournament to give them that last little boost that they needed.
Yeah. In the semifinals round, then, the Toledo Rockets, the number 4 seed, were pitted against the number 1 seed Ball State Cardinals, team boasting only 1 MAC loss all year. Yeah. Really, really impressive.
They've been dominant all season long. Just an incredible team to watch.
Whereas the Falcons, as we previously mentioned, were matched up against the Western Michigan Broncos. And for the Toledo game, I was in the Falcon Radio studio, board operating for this one. It was a heck of a back and forth. I mean, the Rockets are just putting their fans have to be like, they need to be getting checked on to make sure that their heart health is okay, because they are just putting them through the ringer with these games. I mean, they're back and forth. Ball State led early in the first set 11-6 in that one. By the second timeout, they were leading 15-7, and they kind of never looked back. At 18-11, they made a coach's challenge that they ended up losing, and the Cardinals ended up just kind of stretching their legs a little bit, really stretching out that lead, and 25-15 was the mark they won. After that first set, I am a little bit reactionary, I'll admit, and I was like, okay, well, surely this is the Ball State team we're expecting to take care of business, and they're going to. This is a team that finished runner-up in the MAC tournament last year. It's a team that's been there. They know, what they can do, and they obviously, again, just dominant during the regular season this year. So I really thought that Toledo was going to be all but put away.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. I mean, we've watched Ball State all season long. They have been a dominant team on both ends, offensively and defensively. Watching them just take this first set the way that they did, it's not some crazy thing to say that, oh, this is the Ball State team that we've remembered. This is how they're going to do. This is why they only lost 1 game in MAC play in the regular season.
Yeah, and again, important context to this team, I think, as well. Outside hitter sophomore Carson Tyler is the 2025 MAC Player of the Year. Ball State head coach Kelly Miller-Phillips is the MAC Coach of the Year for 2025. So I think that says, kind of what it needs to about, the kind of team that this team is. Think of Bowling Green last year, Daniela Tomic, Lauren Hovey. I mean,
absolutely.
You get the idea. A casual fan can pick up, the significance of that. Mm-hmm. But the second set was very different from that. It was, in fact, very, very competitive and tight pretty much the whole way. Midway through the set, the Rockets held a 12-11 lead. Toledo raised their attacking percentage, notably in that second set. They were negative 0.027 in the first set. So just, really awful offensively, which, as you said, a defensive team, they're going to take their time to get going. They're going to wear you down, and, their own hitting proficiency will improve as they go. Big jump to 0.271 in that second set. Kostlau, as mentioned, the kills leader from their first match, put the Rockets up from a 17-17 tie, leading 18-17 late. Coming out of a tie stoppage there, Toledo pushed to a 3-point lead, the largest of the match for them. Then they led 23-22, and he was kind of back and forth at this point. The Cardinals and the Rockets kind of battled 23-22, 24-23. And, of course, because it's tournament volleyball and it's the MAC, and the MAC is for sickos, they started pushing into extra points. A big-time block by setter Kelsey Smith for Toledo ultimately won them the game from match point, and they won 28-26.
It's just what the tournament is for. These type of games, this is both teams leaving it out all on the court that, one of these games can be the difference, swing all the momentum in the favor of one team, and they can't give it up at that point.
We're pushing to 28 points in set 2. Again, listening to this, just following along from the studio, I was on the edge of my seat. I mean, I was fired up. It was absolutely electric. In the third set, Toledo got off to a really hot start, playing very aggressively, not necessarily their most, come swinging out of the gate offensively, not, again, their identity, but leading 11-7 early. But the Cardinals kept it close. Toledo kind of kept the momentum going, got up to 21-17, and Ball State committed 8 attacking errors in the third set.
That's
ultimately
you can never have that.
Not a recipe for success.
Not close to a recipe for success.
The Cardinals were able to still draw it within 1 point and then even tie it 24-24 before Toledo got into set point position. With Toledo at set point position, 25-24, the Rockets had an attack error, becomes tied at 25. Toledo pulled ahead again to 26, and then Carson Tyler had a kill, tied it again at 26. Cardinals got a block to go up to 27, and they win 28-26.
Back-to-back,
electric 28 point for the win sets, and to have to that's 2 sets in or 3 sets in.
Mm-hmm.
2 of your first 3, you're pushing to 28. I mean, you can't get much closer than that, genuinely.
Absolutely not. And these are the games where you really start to figure out what your team is truly made of, because back-to-back 28-point sets for both teams, a win and a loss, really tells you what you are, where you're at as a team. And in the tournament, that's the best place to be like, this is how we play. This is the way we're going to play. You have to play like us, and we're going to make you play our way.
Yeah, I mean, just really, really remarkable volleyball, genuinely. I mean, it sounds simplistic, but very back and forth again in the fourth set. Ball State pulled ahead to their early lead of 10-8 at 2-point margin, one of their one of their biggest leads of this set, I should say. They ended up extending it to 11-8. The Rockets had 2 challenges in this one. They won one and they lost one. There were a lot of challenges in this game. You can tell, coaches very dialed into tournament mode. Just, the number of challenges and 1 challenges. I mean, why not?
You have them. Give it a shot.
It's the occasion to do them. But just always catches your eye when they happen. Yeah. Rockets and Cardinals ended up tied 19-19. Ball State took the lead briefly, prompting another Toledo timeout. Another score again coming out of that timeout, and eventually Ball State found themselves up 23-21. Ball State's middle hitter, Tiffany Snook, brought it to match point 24-23 going into the timeout. Molly Heitkamp for the Rockets ended up tying it. Olivia Heitkamp, excuse me, tied it up at 25 apiece. Again, 25 apiece. Following this, Carson Tyler got a kill, tying it after Toledo took a lead. Long story short, Cardinals win 28-26. 3 sets in a row, 28-26.
No, I think Toledo. You said Cardinal. I believe Toledo won 4 set.
Toledo won the 4th set? Did I read that wrong?
So. Yeah, I believe Toledo won the 4th set.
Oh, Toledo did win the 4th set. There is a mistake on here. Okay. Well, my apologies. Correction. Toledo won the 4th set 28-26, forcing the 5th and final set.
But either way, no matter who wins that one, that is just, 3 sets, 28 points scored. You're going to have the most tired players that they've ever been. And this is in a tournament situation where Toledo played yesterday and had to win a game against Miami of Ohio. They're playing with everything they got at all times against a very well-rested Ball State team who's number 1 for a reason. They got that bye because they've been dominant all season long. And Toledo's just coming out and playing at the highest level that they can to make sure that Ball State has to play their best ball.
Absolutely. Ball State playing their best ball is a nice verbiage. I like that. In the final set, of course, to 15 as volleyball goes. Sides traded points, but Ball State committed a few errors and Toledo would go up 4-2. They'd then pull ahead 5-3 and eventually 7-3. And at this point, the Rockets just never looked back. Something that I feel like happens in a lot of the 5-set volleyball that I've watched is if the 5th set, you just have to start off hot. If you start off hot, the other team starts making mistakes, they panic, or they're kind of checking out, thinking about too much. And I just feel like a lot of times, the earliest scoring, get 1 point, 2 point lead goes a really, really long way in these fifth sets. Going into a timeout, Toledo led the Cardinals 12-6, and they just didn't really look back. Toledo led 14-18 after a Ball State attack error. They challenged the ruling, but ultimately lost that challenge. Ball State did score twice in a row, which caused Toledo to take a timeout. You don't want to give up that lead. But ultimately, Ball State committed an attack error, so Toledo won the final set 15-10.
Yeah, and you talked about, momentum in these final sets. I think you can talk about that in any way. I'll put it in the basketball way since I know it. That's when you're down, 20 points in a game. The team starts to shoot a lot more threes. They start pressing the issue that they need to come back. They need to get these threes. They don't stay within their offense and let it flow like they're supposed to. And that's exactly what Ball State did. They started to push the offense. They started to push the way that they play. And that falls right into Toledo's hands to get that win.
Absolutely. Following that, the second match of Saturday night, the last semifinal match to determine who would face Toledo in the championship game between Bowling Green and Western Michigan. As we said, Western Michigan was able to put it away, but here's how it happened. The first set, Western Michigan scored 25 and Bowling Green scored 21. Western Michigan started really, really strong. Falcons briefly opened 3-0. Western Michigan scored. Bowling Green even scored another 3-0 run with a 6-1 advantage. At 6-1, the Falcons, you're starting really strong. Looks pretty good. Western Michigan went 7-1 to take the lead. 8-7 at that point. The teams ended up tied at 13 before Western Michigan extended that to 15-13. Western Michigan went on another 4-1 stretch, making it 17-14. Bowling Green pulled within one with a 4-1 stretch, but Western Michigan never gave up the lead. And they ultimately outpaced the Falcons on the way to that 25-21 score. One of the big stories of this game, I think, is probably attributable to the defense of Western Michigan, because Lauren Hovey in the first round, I don't think there's any reason to believe that she didn't play as well as she can. And I don't think, I think a lot of the team played as well as they do. Sometimes you're just outmatched. Sometimes you don't play well. But I don't think there was outright bad play coming from the Falcons by any means. But statistically for this one, definitely quieter from the OU game. And there's often quite the correlation between the lower numbers and the lack of success. Lauren Hovey only had 11 kills, 7 less than in the Ohio match, also in the same number of sets. But the second set did go to the Falcons by the same margin as the first one this time, 25-21 in favor of the Falcons. Western Michigan began with a 3-1 lead and eventually made it 8-4, but Bowling Green went 5-0 to make their own lead 9-8. And once again, the teams ended up tied at 13. Again, this tournament has been so competitive. The number of score stalemates is, I won't say crazy because it's not surprising, but it's just, it cannot be overemphasized how, even in, losing in 4 sets, it's wow, they couldn't even push in the distance, but that doesn't, winning 2 more sets, the margins are really thin every time, and that's, why sometimes you end up with sweeps of teams that are really good. And regardless, Bowling Green won that second set. The third set, Western Michigan took 25-20. BG started out 3-0, but Western Michigan went on a 4-0 run to take the lead. The lead traded back and forth a few times. Ultimately, as you know, Western Michigan was able to get this one done. But I think it's really interesting. The second set was the only one that BG was able to win in the match. But in every set, huge multi-score to 0 runs. 5-0 run, 4-0 run, 7-0 run. A lot of just back and forth. The momentum swings were crazy in this one.
Well, that's how these two teams kind of... that's just how volleyball goes sometimes. When you get that momentum... And we talked about it a little bit, trying to push the offense, trying to get, aces or trying to get other directional plays to win the game, to really swing that momentum back. That really can cause more harm than it can good sometimes. And that can really put the team out of position. They can start pressing on the defensive end, and they really start to lose their momentum.
Yeah. Last set for the Falcons ultimately fell, as we discussed, once again. Western Michigan just really, really showed off, why they're the reigning champs, why they've won twice in a row, and why they're, contesting to do it a third time. 25-20, again, not a blowout by any means, but They opened with a 3-0 run. The Falcons went 6-1 to take a lead. And they go back and forth. Western Michigan led at 11-9, and then it became tied 11-11. A 3-0 run for Western Michigan following this moved a tie from 12-12 to 15-12. Falcons pulled within 16-15, but the Broncos went on another 3-0 run. I mean, it's just these repeated pulling off 3 points, 4 points uncontested that, I mean, really won the sets in both directions. The biggest deficit late in this one, 22-16 for the Falcons. They closed the gap a little bit to 23-20, but they ultimately weren't able to defend quite well enough, and the Broncos were able to run away with that one, 25-20. And if nothing else, it's just really hard, I think, from somebody, I mean, we've watched this team plenty, others have covered this team plenty more, the fans commit super hard to this volleyball team. Just the moment of this team, the year, the players who won't be returning, the home tournament, the opponent, I mean, every piece of the puzzle, it's just really tough to swallow, I think, for the Bowling Green fans, this one.
No, it absolutely is. They've been, right there on the doorstep year in and year out, and they just haven't been able to get over that hill, or in this case, Western Michigan, the one team that stopped them year in and year out. And that's just because this Western Michigan team, it's built just so much for the tournament. They can weather storms. They're good at fighting back, getting those 3-0, 4-0 runs, which is huge in tournament time. They're built for these kind of tournament kind of runs that they like to do, and that's what really helps them, that they're ready for them. They've weathered these storms. They have very veteran presence. The coaches, top to bottom, know how to deal with these kind of runs, and that's what, if you're going to be Bowling Green and you want to win these MAC volleyball championships, you got to start getting that kind of experience, and these players have that experience, but they just need to get it all put together one year.
Yeah, definitely one to look back on and try to learn from. I mean, far from a disappointment to the end of the first year of Coach Alex Del Piombo, but I mean, certainly frustrating for her, somebody who's been with the program, and players like Lauren Hovey, Jessica Andrews, and Belle Lauby in particular, who won't be returning to the program after this. Just a tough note for them to end out on, and it's going to leave a lot of question marks, I think, for next year, because you're just there's really big holes to fill.
Mm-hmm.
In particular, the team had to learn how to live life without Lauren Hovey in the regular season, and to their credit, they made the tournament. So I mean, not playing, not accounting for that, not trying to figure it out as we go how to replace this player, knowing, hey, we're not going to have her next year, these are going to be our people who are stepping up. I think they're going to be better suited to combat that going to the next season. But again, I mean, the talent in the MAC is young.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the Toledo and Miami opening match, and the leader in kills for both teams, a freshman.
Yeah.
You look at Carson Tyler, the MAC Player of the Year. She's a sophomore. I mean, these teams that are competing aren't going anywhere. Western Michigan, I think a lot of people, including our own volleyball beats, I wouldn't say wrote off, but they weren't expected to be the team they were last year. You look at Logan Case, star setter, 5-year player, departing the program, graduating, and I think there was lower expectations for them, and they didn't come in as the 1 seed, but I mean, in the championship match right now, and I got to tell you, in this first set, they're currently up 22-13. So it's pretty strong start for the Broncos in this championship match, and just tells you how competitive this MAC is going to continue to be. It'll be really interesting, as I said, to see how Coach Del Piombo navigates not only her second year as a head coach, but also life without Hovey and Andrews and Lauby. So we're going to turn it over to her and listen to Coach Alex Del Piombo's opening statement following the Falcons' loss to the Broncos yesterday.
Obviously, it hurts. It hurts. Hate having that happen in the tournament in general, even harder at home. I thought Western Michigan did a great job defending us. They were scrappy and frustrating to play against. They were really disciplined on the block. I think that, our talk in the locker room was just the way that we're going to honor our seniors is just learning from this, learning that, every little detail matters, everything that we preach about discipline, no such thing as little things, all of it matters. And I think it caught up to us a little bit tonight. and it was hard to get out of it. They didn't give us much room to breathe. So kudos to them. They're a good team. Every single person on that team did their part for them to make that happen, and we're going to learn from it. But big shout out to Lauren, Jess, and Belle. They've been amazing pieces of this program, and we're better because of them.
Nail on the head right there. I appreciate Coach Del Piombo, taking the time there to, shout out those players. 'Cause, there's a lot of things to look at, easy to dwell on the disappointment because, this is a team that, Amanda Otten and Lauren Hovey, plenty of players talked about it before the season. The expectation was, hey, this is a team that can win a MAC title, and at their best should have, probably been a favorite or one of the favorites to win the MAC title. But, focusing on, the reality of that, Jessica Andrews, Belle Laube, Lauren Hovey, three long-time and significant contributors to this program, shouldn't be overshadowed by a disappointing exit in this tournament, just the impact that they've had on the program.
Yeah, they've had such a great program, years here, spent time, even with a coaching change, they decided to stick it out, It's been such a great time for them to be here, to be Falcons. They've been so ingrained in the community. They've played amazing volleyball year in and year out. And for them to come up short these couple of years, it's probably one of the worst feelings for them, as they've played so well. They just have not been able to get over that hump and win a MAC championship for Bowling Green.
Yeah, Lauren Hovey, a MAC Player of the Year winner. Jessica Andrews, a MAC first team selection. Belle Laube, a significant Bowling Green contributor, and, a family player too. Her sister Hannah Laube previously with the program. So, just super important roots and players who I'm sure we will see show out in the future, when they come back as alums. But certainly tough day for the Falcons just to have to watch them go out like that. But we're going to let Coach Del Piombo continue with more of the questions from her press conference yesterday.
Yeah, Coach, speaking about the game, the only set won was the second. Just what did you see in that second set that brought you guys to victory in that one? And then what did you see, in the other three that could have had improvement in trying to take victories there?
Yeah, I thought in the second set we got better defensively, and we forced them into some things they didn't want to do. And then we were taking better shots. I thought a lot of times we were in semi-system, out of system, and putting a lot of pressure on our pins, and our pins struggled a little bit tonight with that. And we had to have a lot more patience in transition and better with that first contact. And we did that in the second set, and then kind of lost it as the match went on.
Pins there, very sturdy block for Western Michigan tonight, 17 total.
Yeah.
To your guys, 10 still a respectable number, but 17's a lot. Just what did you see from Western Michigan? What did they bring in the blocking scheme to shut you guys down so well?
Yeah, well, they got us out of system or in semi-system, and then they did a good job of just being disciplined with their press, and we did not do a great job of changing our shots. We were kind of swinging, hoping good things happened, and they didn't give it to us. So that's what happens when you're disciplined, good things happen, and they did that really well.
Yeah, we looked to Amanda Otten's stat line today. 40 assists, pretty well played defensively as well, but 3 setting errors. Don't remember the last time we saw that number. Just what did you see from Amanda tonight setting to the hitters?
Yeah, I mean, she was on the run quite a bit in transition specifically. I thought even when we were getting good touches, we were maybe like quick setting her, passing low when we need to go high and calm things down a little bit better. But that's what happens. I thought we felt stress. We felt some stress in moments. When you're not playing well, it's really easy to feel stressed out, and I thought that we let it carry over. And Amanda was on the run and couldn't really find her flow that she does really well. And she got a little complex. And, she's been so good for us all year. She's been playing through an injury the whole year. And, we didn't make it a lot easier on her tonight.
A season high in kills for Helen as well. One of the bright spots, also on the blocking end of the floor. What did you see from her performance tonight that helped her to step up in big situations?
Yeah, we were proud of Helen tonight. She just went for it. She didn't second guess herself. Sometimes, it's nice that when we have other hitters getting kills, she gets a one-on-one opportunity. But Helen was really disciplined with her approach timing. She was swinging deep seams, and that's what worked. When you're swinging low seams against a disciplined defense and block like that, they're gonna stuff you. And she was going for those deep seams consistently, and it worked out.
Coach, you touched on it a little bit, but serve receive really was a struggle tonight. What were you seeing from the Western Michigan servers? They didn't have a ton of service aces against you guys, but they were consistently putting you out of system.
Yeah, they were flat and we call it flat and clean and some seams. And we had a couple little bit moments of hesitation, or we were just getting caught high. When it's coming at you fast like that, getting caught up. I was proud of us not getting aced, but we wanted to turn some of those ones into twos so that we had more options. And I'm not sure that we passed that many threes tonight, where it was nice and high and simple, and we had three options. That's where we shine, with all the offensive weapons we have. And we just needed to kind of dictate just a little bit more. But they did a great job serving. I thought we had a great serving game, too. We kept them out of system. They just were a little bit better in transition with that defense.
You mentioned it right then, Coach. This Western Michigan team tends to be really, really good out of system, and just that's part of what makes them so frustrating to play against. Is you think you have them backed into a corner and they manage to get out of it. What were you seeing from them, and how they were able to get out of those corners, and how their hitters were still able to get clean looks even in those out of system situations?
Yeah, I think they just all do their jobs really well. If they get a block touch, that second contact's in system, which gives them that little bit of a seam, and they take advantage of it. So kudos to them, and that's something that we need to learn from. We've been talking about it all year, but we need to really implement every little piece of our offense and defense doing their jobs to create those opportunities.
One last question. Could you just give your main takeaways from your first season at the helm of the BG program?
That's a great question. I think I've learned a lot. Ups, downs, craziness, having a 3-month-old, going through all those things. I've learned a ton. And when I was just in the locker room, what I promised Lauren, Jess, and Belle, I'm going to keep working as hard as I can for them to keep making this program better. And I'm going to make sure that I'm the example of taking accountability, and I'm the example of failing better, of learning from mistakes, of being better in scenarios. I think that's the biggest takeaway from this year is just it's sometimes you can never predict things, but being prepared for it and how you respond is everything. So, a ton of learning, a ton of honestly crazy, but it made me better. They made me better, and I'm just really grateful. I'm grateful for this team. I'm grateful for this community. I'm grateful to be a mom in this scenario. And I don't know, it might not look it. And as a competitor, I hate saying this, but I'm still really proud of what we went through and how we came out of it.
Really, really well said there. When you look at a season where a team finishes beneath expectation or hope, their own aspirations, I think that those are times where, questions maybe start to arise about, does this coach have the stuff? I mean, you're usually the finger pointed at the coach. I don't think there's any questions or ambiguity about this situation at all. I mean, clearly, understands, unhappiness with the result. Just a lot of really good perspective, I guess, would be my way of putting it from Coach Padalpiano.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, dealing with everything, the injuries, the family that she's now has off the court, and to still make the tournament, to still really make a good effort trying to take this team over the top. The players who are still here, the players who are watching volleyball to come and maybe to Bowling Green, they see all of that, and that's something that's not going to pass them by when they're deciding where to commit or if they want to stay here for another season. That's something that keeps all these players into wanting to play in Bowling Green and wanting to be a Falcon for the long haul.
Definitely. As it stands right now, we'll keep updated. It's probably going to get done right after we're done here, but you can check out the broadcast of the MAC tournament final between Toledo and Western Michigan, if you so find yourself interested. Ben Korak and Andrew Smith are calling that live right now on Falcon Radio on bgfalconmedia.com. You'll also be able to find the re-upload of this broadcast on YouTube after the conclusion of it. But right now, the Western Michigan Broncos do lead in that championship match 25-22, or I'm sorry, 1-0 after winning the first set 25-22. So Broncos starting off hot, although the Rockets did pull it a lot closer than it was when we updated with that score earlier.
And that's what we talked about. The Rockets in this tournament, they've started off slow and kind of fought their way back into games. The second set will be very interesting to see how Toledo plays the second set, to see if they can win a second set and then really take that momentum into sets 3.
We're going to keep you updated as we see more on that. But we're going to pivot. We've got about 20 minutes left to do our first half of the show here. And it's been a little bit longer than it normally has since the most recent game, but we're going to talk about football. The struggle bus continues. I mean, one of the uglier games that I've watched of football, just in general. The Akron Zips come to town for a Tuesday night MACtion game. You know it, you love it. You're a sicko if those things are true for you. I'm a sicko. I love Tuesday night MACtion. It's stupid. It's great. 19-16, the Zips walk out with the victory over the Falcons. Before we dig too much into this game, I want to step back and just look at the Akron season. Because number one, they're the first FBS team to finish their season. They're done. Bowling Green still plays this next Tuesday against UMass. A lot of other teams still play next Saturday. They were done Tuesday, which is by far the earliest. 5-7, and the particular post on X that I saw that posed it quite well to me was, imagine you're Akron and you're sitting at 5-7. Solid turnaround year after some kind of low expectations, being picked to finish low, struggles last year. You may think to yourself, well, depending on how many teams are bowl eligible, those 5-win teams could be on the bubble because of APR. Oh no. What a wild story there.
Yeah.
And that in mind, you're already past the point where you can truly rewrite this season. You left Ypsilanti not eligible for a bowl game. So, last two games, where were the aspirations? Do we really care? But then again, I got to look at, this is a team playing for, pride and nothing but pride, coming into your house on a, pretty cold Tuesday night. Just not a great one to lose for the Falcons. Not that there's ever a great game to lose, but I do always want to, be fair and, point out you got a fourth-string quarterback playing the most significant time he has. Hunter Najm didn't look great. 9 for 26, a touchdown, 2 picks. In particular, a game-sealing pick on a drive where the Falcons probably could have kicked a field goal.
Well, they were moving it, running the ball that final drive as well. They had first down after first down running the ball, and they dropped back kind of into just one pass, and that one pass was the game breaker right there.
And you're in those late situations. You don't have timeouts. You're not a strong passing team. You got to move the ball how you can. At some point, you've got to have in the team meetings, in the offensive room meetings, quarterbacks meetings, you got to know the situations you're in. And I just, for as much I feel as though I've been fairly on the record as being pretty defensive of the fourth string. There's a reason he was a fourth string. There's a reason he's a freshman. I get it. This is no shot at Hunter Najm. If I were to take a shot at the play of a Bowling Green quarterback, it would be somebody higher up the depth chart. Being frank.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, where was he throwing that last ball, man?
Yeah, that was.
I had struggled being in the band corner. I struggled to see an orange jersey in close proximity to where the ball was thrown.
There was one, and I think it was RJ Garcia, and I don't know if it was a miscommunication between the two of them or if the ball just slipped because it was a Tuesday night and it was raining and it was just ugly outside, or has been raining the day of, and that ball looked like it either slipped or it was just a miscommunication of the route because RJ was way deeper. I think it was RJ. I'm not going to be 100% sure. I don't want to blame RJ for running the wrong route, but whoever the wide receiver was much deeper than where the ball was thrown to, and the ball was thrown to right where a defender for
Well,
Akron
it could go
was.
either way, too. It could be a receiver thing. It could be a timing thing where
it could be both at the same
time. It could be
time.
where Hunter Najm made what instinctually a really good play, throwing with a lot of anticipation, but, to, kind of a different, like a shallower concept where there's not actually a guy. We don't know. We weren't in the room. But, just a tough one.
It's one of those really tough ones. It's very much a game that, a lot of games this season for Bowling Green that they should have won. They could have won with, taking a couple mistakes out of the game, that they could have won a game here. That very first game versus Ohio was something that they could have won. They could have beaten, a couple other teams on their schedule. just, Eastern Michigan. They could have beat that one. That was a touchdown game. They have had these really close. Kent State 3-point loss. They won Toledo. They beat Toledo. They figured out that one. But, they have these other games that just could have won, and they just didn't end up winning.
Well, and here's the thing, too. You look at the MAC. Right now, through 7 games played, 1 conference game left for every team except Akron, because Akron. That's still so weird. The fact that they've played their 8 and every other team has played 7. It's got to be the byproduct of having the odd number of teams, I suppose.
It has to be for this season. It should fix itself next year with Northern Illinois leaving, but who knows? And they're also obviously ineligible because of academics from last year. They cannot make a bowl game. But nonetheless, I think they've had just a really good season.
Yeah, I mean,
the
finishing middle of the pack in the ACC 4-4 conference. You can look at a 5-7 overall record. If you're a MAC program, I don't think that's. I know that right now the constructs exist for a Group of 5 spot in the playoff, and if somebody with a schedule like Bowling Green, or especially like a Bowling Green did last, here's something I thought about all the time last year, even though I knew there was no chance it was going to happen. If Bowling Green goes undefeated in the
non-conference.
Yeah, if they go undefeated in the non-conference, and they win the MAC, they were going to the playoff.
Oh,
or any MAC team,
have that
that plays. If you win a ranked game and win the conference, you've got a good shot. NIU last year with their Notre Dame win, if they had stayed hot, they could have made it too.
They could have done it.
And realistically, I don't know if that the Group of 5 spot, is even going to be a long-term thing. I could see them moving away from it. I feel like the playoffs probably going to change again here in a year.
Yeah,
or
they're going to
two.
drop it down to a 12 here in a couple of years.
But regardless of what happens with playoff formats, I don't view 4-4 as a bad season at all in the MAC. I don't think your overall record in the MAC truly matters that much. And you look at that's firmly middle of the pack in the MAC. Bowling Green will finish at best 2 games below that, at worst 3 games below that. UMass distance below that. The best that Eastern Michigan, Ball State, and Kent State can do is tie that, and that's not to talk down on those programs either. Kent State, really a remarkable turnaround, winning 4 games after
this year,
being the worst team in college football last year. But anyway, you look at the top teams, teams that are still in contention for the MAC title. You beat Toledo, which boggles the mind more and more every day. You also, Central Michigan and Buffalo, those are contenders. You kind of expected them. I guess Buffalo's out of contention now, but they were a contender. Yeah. But, you didn't. Those games shouldn't have been this close, and I understand why they weren't for the Falcons. But then you look at the Eastern Michigan game and the Akron game and the Kent State game. That's on par competition, and you played them close. At some point, you've got to get out the win in that close game, and I just don't. Where's the team that beat Toledo? Is Toledo the biggest? Is Jason Candle the biggest choke artist of all time?
If you ask Toledo fans, they probably would say yes. Obviously, you saw the outrage from the Toledo fans afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know if it's this is their first year with the new head coaching, new staff, injuries to the quarterback 1, 2, and 3. You're on 4th string quarterback. Everyone's trying to figure it out and play together with constant quarterback changes. I don't know if it's that. I don't know if it's the defense has been playing very well most of the season. They've had good games. They've kept them in the games, but the offense has just been where the big questions for me have. And coming into the season, I was like, okay, this defense or this offensive line, is very, very weathered, very veteran offensive line.
I was super high on the O-line before the year, and I think they've been solid in the run game.
They have been. They've been very solid in the run game. Multiple different runners for Bowling Green have had great games, but
I just feel like and it's a tall order, they're like nobody's the jerk, nobody's at fault,
No.
When the offense is struggling in the way they are, and you got a young quarterback, it's not the young quarterback's fault that he hasn't had experience yet. It's not the offensive line's fault that their quarterback isn't experienced. But at some point, you're the seasoned unit. You got to be able to, step up and do more, kind of lift your guys. And just something they haven't been able to do. This is a funny thought, but I was thinking about this earlier. Genuinely, if I'm a Toledo fan, I'm probably as much as I'm enjoying the hate watch, I'm probably a little sick to my stomach.
Oh yeah, they absolutely
Because
have to
how
be.
did you lose that game?
It was 28 unanswered points
Yeah,
to Bowling
28
Green.
unanswered points.
And this is the team that, can't beat Kent State. They've struggled, Eastern Michigan,
can't beat Akron. Can't beat Eastern Michigan.
They're going
blown
down.
out by Central Michigan,
Yes.
who, is a decent chance,
They're doing
but
a good
not not a lock for making Detroit.
Yeah, and that Central Michigan game right after the big Toledo win for Bowling Green. They have to be, they have to be happy to seeing Bowling Green is obviously downfall if you're a Toledo fan, but every day I think Bowling Green fans question how we won that game. Toledo fans questions how they lost that game. That's just MAC football though.
Yeah.
Questions are going to be asked. You're never going to get an answer for a MAC football game.
Yeah. On the topic of MAC football games, I want to know your take. Western Michigan right now 6-1. They're in a win-and-in scenario for Detroit going against Eastern Michigan this Tuesday. I think they're going to get it done.
Oh yeah, I think they will.
I think
they've played well enough all season.
I think they've shown that those pesky Broncos in literally every sport. Men's soccer, they're pretty good. This year, one of their worst years in a while, and they're still solid, still in the tournament.
Women's soccer
wins
won
the
the
MAC tournament. Volleyball, well, look where they are. They have a hockey program that's pretty good. If I heard that,
I believe they're
I
pretty
think they
good
have
at
a
hockey
national
as well.
championship.
Yeah, reigning national champs or something
When
like
will
that.
it end? There's a contingent, and because we don't attend Bowling Green in the time period where it's like formative to build those rivalries and stuff, it'll never be the same as the Battle of I-75. But genuinely, I think our generation of Bowling Green sports fans are going to wind up with just as much Bronco angst as anything, if not more.
Well, we can even go back to last season. Bowling Green is in their own winning to make the MAC tournament for the men's basketball team. And who beats them in the very last game of the season? Western Michigan. It was a foul, 2 free throws, make them both. And, I was watching that from the sideline. They lost that game. You could just tell the energy in the stadium the minute that foul was called was gone. They knew Western Michigan's going to knock both these down. Bowling Green's going to get eliminated. And they needed help from Northern Illinois to win the game, who at the time last year had only one MAC win. They got their second one to get Bowling Green into the tournament. But, yeah, I'm 100% with you on that. I think, we have such a big rivalry, and maybe it's just people don't think of it that way because you think of Bowling Green and Toledo of that big rivalry. But, man, Bowling Green and Western Michigan, they play each other very well every year. Western Michigan has such good rounded sports and athletic environment there that they're always going to roll out a really good team.
Hey, and by the way, just in case you weren't keeping tabs on Western Michigan in the Missouri Valley Conference, they also won that tournament.
Oh, of course they did.
So, men's soccer, women's soccer, threatening in volleyball, threatening in football. In the championship game right now, currently playing in volleyball.
They are won the first set. They are down 12-6 in the second right now.
Threatening in football, currently leading the MAC, reigning hockey national champion,
reigning volleyball MAC champions 2 years in a row.
I would argue maybe the best group of 5 school athletically right now.
Rounded wise, yes. I'd say
top to bottom.
Absolutely.
Frankly,
how many?
Actually, I don't think it's close because how many of those schools have a national title of any kind?
Absolutely. How many have a national title at the highest level? I'm not talking like the NIT winning, like UT Chattanooga won. UT Chattanooga won last year, the NIT over, I believe it was UAB. That was a fun game to watch if you tuned into that.
That's a Foster Ross type pull if I've ever heard one.
Yeah, that is. I will be tuned into the NIT this year as well as every other tiny tournament that they have. They have about 17 of them every year now.
So my question to you though: Miami of Ohio, Central Michigan, Toledo, Ohio University, the 4 teams at 5-2. Who joins the Broncos in Detroit for the MAC championship? I'll tell you their matchups. Okay. Toledo plays against Central Michigan.
Oh, okay. Is that a win and in for them too, or
for either of them? It would depend on tiebreakers.
Hold on.
So it gets ugly. Let's say Toledo and Miami are the only teams tied at 6-2. Toledo does have the head-to-head there.
Okay.
for Central Michigan, they played Toledo, so they have the chance to claim the tiebreaker there. Central Michigan has not played against any of those other contending teams, actually. So there's no head-to-head tiebreaker that they would be at risk of losing out on. And then it would go to a record against common opponents, which would favor them in that case. Miami, meanwhile, they play Ball State to close their season. So a likely win, not a guaranteed one. The Bobcats OU play against Eastern Michigan. They play Buffalo. So that's a taller order. I think it's going to be Central Michigan. They already lost to Western this year, but my hot take is Central Michigan. I think they get it done against Toledo. I feel like Jason Candle has just a little bit more choke magic left in him. Miami, I think kind of gets upset. I just see them getting surprised. I don't know why. I just kind of got that feeling from watching. I haven't been as convinced by them. They were good last year. Ohio was the clear-cut favorite last year.
Yeah, they were.
But I mean, Miami's clearly a step back. Yeah. I think. For some reason, I just think that one's going to be Central. I don't know. What do you think?
I think I got to give it to Ohio. I mean, they're returning their quarterback from last year. They've always had that good team. I mean, even with losing their coach, who goes to Charlotte and underperforms. I mean, one win on the season so far, but we'll talk about that later. They have always had such a good team. They've always been a good program. I think they are going to get it back this year. I think they're going to go back to the tournament. I don't know if they're going to win it, but I do think Ohio Bobcats versus the Broncos are going to be the MAC. They're both going to travel to Detroit.
I like that take. I would never, once again, Foster Ross tie poll. I would not have kept tabs as well as you on a former conference opponent's coach's new stop, admittedly.
I think
1 in 10?
Yes.
Tim Albin wins the MAC championship with the Ohio Bobcats over the Miami Redhawks, who were a phenomenal team in the MAC, by the way. Big time win. Goes and wins the Cure Bowl? I think it was the Cure Bowl. And his star quarterback, shouted out by Timothy Chalamet on College Game Day, Parker Navarro, returns for another season, and he goes to take a job with the Charlotte 49ers.
He takes that job immediately after winning that game as well. Wins the
immediately
bowl game.
After the bowl game?
Oh, yeah, immediately took that game.
And they're 1 in 10.
Yeah, I think we talked about it last year, but taking that job in Charlotte, it felt like just an odd move to begin with.
I mean, it felt odd, but I didn't know that.
I mean,
there's some good teams on here, but
yes, they're playing in good teams.
I mean, you're losing to App State by 23.
Well, that's not. App State's got a good football program. We're not gonna. I won't.
Yes, they have a good football program.
But
I mean, so does Toledo.
They do, yes, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's that first year with him down in that program. Maybe he'll do better, but
North Texas wins by 34.
Yeah.
Temple wins by 35. Mm-hmm. They lost to South Florida.
USF has got some players this year.
Yeah, the USF does have some players this year. They almost swept the state.
Yeah. USF has that their quarterback Brown.
Lost to East Carolina by 26. UTSA by 21. Mm-hmm. They've got a chance to get a second win for the year. Over Tulane.
That's
Saturday.
That's an uphill battle. They
played Georgia yesterday. Okay, yeah. I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
35-3. I mean, that's fine. That's Georgia. But why is Georgia playing Charlotte?
It's the same
13?
Reason.
Oh my God.
They have that shortened out of conference. They play 3 out of conference. Then Big Ten plays 4,
and then they get in conference earlier. I like that. I'd like to see I like the 9 conference games. To be honest, I think that's kind of a nice sweet spot. I do, because I feel like at least one out of conference game for any team, whether you're the big dog or the little dog, always feels like filler.
Yeah, it does.
As a MAC team, do you need to play an FCS team? Play another Group of 5. Yeah. Schedule like the Liberty game.
Great
awesome.
Game.
Love
Absolutely.
it. Especially
great
with some,
uniform
when you do
too.
a home and home, phenomenal uniform matchup. And when you do a home and home, great.
It's perfect.
You both travel. I love it. You go, get the travel games to the big programs, in state like Cincy, adjacent state like Louisville, Penn State. Those are
Penn
great.
State, Texas A&M.
The Michigan trip, super cool.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
Great, great environment, great opportunity. Don't like how that game ended. That's a separate issue,
Yes,
obviously.
yeah.
But, you're not going to those just for wins. I mean, you're spreading and building your culture. You're giving experiences to the team and the fans. I mean, it's just cool stuff.
Yeah, and you're getting your name out there at a higher level. I mean, next year they got Nebraska in Lincoln, Nebraska,
If it
and at
wasn't-
Iowa State.
If it wasn't the first game for Coach Eddie George, though, who would have cared about playing the Fordham Rams?
Oh, I think they would have cared after they got that first kickoff return touchdown for second year in a row. I think
Yeah.
that would have jumped out to everyone. But no, I think all eyes were on because Eddie George was here for that first game. Yeah.
Right. Or I'm sorry, that Fordham was last year.
Yes, this year it was Lafayette, yeah.
That's what I
Yeah.
mean. Lafayette. I also thought of the kick return, so
Yeah,
the game
hey.
kind of blends. It's the same game.
It's the same thing.
But the out of conference, whatever. This is a long sidebar from what we were talking about with the MAC. Last thing, and we'll wrap up football because truly the team itself, not the best performance. Not a lot to talk about. This is a hard hitter. Does Bowling Green get it done, or do they give UMass their first win?
I think they get it done. UMass has played some of the worst football this year. I mean, there's a reason they're one of the worst football teams in the nation. I think Bowling Green has shown enough all season. I mean, you don't not win a single game all year because you're playing good football. Bowling Green has played some good football, and you've seen it. I know they have a freshman quarterback. I know they're coming in, losing 5 straight games or of that sort. It could be 4. I may be wrong on that. But they've played well enough. They've showed enough with that offensive line and the run game especially that they're probably going to get it done against UMass.
Yeah, and looking over the scores, actually, I do feel more that way as well. I was going to say the opposite. The only really good performance, 28-21, they lost to Buffalo. But I don't know how that was even that close.
Buffalo this season, they've played down a lot to their opponents. That Buffalo-Kent State game, Buffalo played down to Kent State the same way and barely won it off a walk-off touchdown. So I think the only game that they didn't play down to their opponents was the Bowling Green game, where they remembered that they're a good football team. And just conveniently remembered they're a good football team against us and just played really well.
Yeah, well, I do think that Bowling Green gets it done, ends the season on a win. But we're going to just have to wait to see that as the Falcons travel to Amherst to take on UMass on Tuesday at 4:30. What are we doing?
Action, baby.
Mid-American Conference. I want you to listen, and I want you to listen good.
I need it earlier. That's what we need. Noon.
Fella, I'm on the clock at 4:30. What are we doing? Whose idea was this?
I don't know.
Who's going to this game? Tickets as low as $10.
Me.
I wouldn't pay $10 for a 4:30 ticket.
I wouldn't. Not to watch UMass. There's a lot of teams I'd pay $10 to watch. UMass is not one of them.
I don't understand it.
I
That's
don't
going to
either.
wrap up
It's
football
funny,
for us today. We are now into the second hour of the Zig Zone, and so we are going to step away briefly for another station identification, but don't go anywhere because when we come back, we're going to talk about both the men's and women's basketball teams, different things going on for both of them right now, and of course we're going to touch on hockey as well and have a little fun discussion to wrap it up. So don't go anywhere. You're just now getting to the second half of the Zig Zone here on WBGU 88.1 FM.
You are listening to Falcon Media Sports Network coverage on WBGU 88.1 FM in Bowling Green, Ohio.
Be part of the WBGU team. Volunteer with WBGU FM in a variety of roles, including on-air, promotions, social media, music selection, and much more. Positions are always available to students and the local community. For more information, visit the WBGU Facebook page. Volunteer with Northwest Ohio's community radio station, WBGU 88.1 FM. The return to radio freedom.
Welcome back here to WBGU 88.1 FM's flagship Bowling Green sports show, The Zig Zone. Falcon Media Sports Network's Holden Rook here once again with Foster Rostai, and we're going to get into some volleyball talk, but before we do, we are going to give an update on the MAC Volleyball Championships tournament championship game, or match, I should say. the Broncos, the Western Michigan Broncos, that is, after winning the first set 25-22, now trail 23-16 in the second set to the Toledo Rockets. So, I mean, this one looks primed to go the distance again.
Yeah, absolutely. And we kind of talked about it. These Toledo games, they start that first one off slow, and then they really figured out that second set. And after that second set, it's all up in the air for these teams.
Make that 24-16 Rockets lead in that second set. We'll keep you posted as we get more info on that. Once again, with this one likely to go at least 4, almost guaranteed to go 4 here. Probably not going to get the result while we're here, but that's okay, because not only can you check out our written recaps on bgfalconmedia.com, where one of our writers will have the recap of this match, you can also check out our socials on Twitter X at BG_FMSN. And if you want to listen back to the broadcast of this game, Ben Korak and Andrew Smith's live broadcast now on Falcon Radio will be re-uploaded onto YouTube at BG Falcon Media following the conclusion of the match, in which Toledo did just take the second set 25-16. But moving past that now, we're going to go ahead and get into some basketball action. And Foster, let's start with the women's team. I know our own Lucas Kleinmeyer made quite the road trip, road being generous, quite the air trip to cover this team. So what's been going on with them?
They've been in Anchorage, Alaska for a little Alaskan shootout with UC Irvine and Alaska Anchorage as their two opponents. Alaska Anchorage being a D2 school, and these games actually not counting for Alaska Anchorage. So just some good competition for them to play up in Alaska, which they probably don't see as often as they'd like to see. But that team is 5-0 right now in their division, so they've been playing very well. But the first game was UC Irvine, a game in which the Bowling Green has really struggled from the three-point line. 6 for 33 in that game, 33 of their total shots being from behind the arc. It's something that, they struggled so badly that first set that they scored only 1 point in the first quarter of play. Or not 3 points in the first quarter of play, excuse me. And at one point, I did not know, as I was listening to the game, that the first quarter had ended, and I thought it was a media timeout because of the score, because it was a 15-3 point game. I was listening in. I was in the studio right beside us doing the halftime show, getting ready for it, and they're like, yeah, we're in the second quarter. I was like, what do you mean? We've only scored 3 points in the first. It has been a struggle for this team kind of offensively, and that's going to continue if they don't figure out really who's their their third scorer in this case, because we know Paige Kohler's the head of the offense. We know Donahue's going to be the second player, getting steals and getting scores, but we need that third player to really step up and figure out, if these two can't get it going, I'll take a step up, get some scoring, kind of open up the court for them. And right now, Lauren Gherkin is probably my biggest one to say, yeah, she needs to step up a little bit more. Against UC Irvine, 0 for 7 from the field, 0 for 6 from 3. Had 6 rebounds, so was contributing in other ways, but you can't have that kind of bad shooting night if you're Lauren Gherkin. Such an important piece. I mean, she's going to continue to be an important offensive piece to this roster. Just needs to kind of figure out her rhythm for this season.
Yeah, and I do think that it can't be overstated. And our own Ben Korak was very, very ahead of the game on this one last year. Janae Donahue is very quickly emerging into just, an incredible talent.
Oh, absolutely.
A really phenomenal player.
3 steals, 5 assists during the game against UC Irvine. 6 rebounds, 10 points, 6 for 6 from the free throw line. Doing a little of everything. She plays with such a high motor at all times. Even if her offense isn't leading the team or second on the team, she's going to be fighting for rebounds. She's going to be playing ferocious defense, which she plays night in and night out. She's going to be looking to pass the ball. You can always lean on her intangibles, just the way she plays the game at such a high level with a high motor. Even if her offense isn't there, she's going to contribute every way.
I just kind of want your thoughts also. Obviously you mentioned the game not counting for Anchorage. The margins of victory are something that I try not to put too much stock in. At times. You look at the game, you're traveling to South Carolina. You're going to get blown out pretty good. And you should not only expect that, but on some level you should be okay with that. You know what I mean? It kind of is what it is. It's the number 2 team in the country. You're a mid-major. There's so many fish in the sea of college basketball, to be ranked, I feel like holds a lot more weight than
Yes.
it does in a lot of other sports. So, I get it. I get that one's fine. A 12-point loss to Wisconsin, it's not that bad. 25 feels like a lot of points to lose to UC Irvine.
Yes, I will say that it does seem like a lot. As I said a little bit before, 6 or 33 from 3. They really rely on the 3-point shot, which I don't like as much. Like, I understand the 3-point shot. The way the basketball is kind of evolving, they're shooting a lot more threes. They're getting a lot more 3-point shots up. I understand it. I don't like it that much. I think kind of cutting back on the threes. 30 seems like a lot. I understand 25 is not a big step down, but I think 25 would be, where I think they should be shooting. About 20 to 25 threes a game I would be very comfortable with this team getting up that many, especially if it was, Gherkin getting up shots, Fern getting up shots, Kohler getting up not 8 threes, but maybe 5 a game. I'd be much more comfortable in those ranges, because I think when you kind of start to fall down in these games, you're going to start to press a little bit more on the 3-point shot to get yourself back in, because those threes are more than 2. It's this common saying in basketball. It's a common saying in life.
3 is more than 2.
3 is more than 2.
Many people are
as
saying
many
this.
people do say. But they start to press, and when you start to press and force up the 3-point shots, you're not getting the good looks that you could be within the offense, and that's where this kind of big lead starts to form. That they're getting up bad shots, the long rebounds are going to UC Irvine, who's getting out and running instantly. And that's where that lead starts to really balloon if you're Bowling Green.
Yeah, 6 for 33. I had to do the math just to make sure I was right, and it is, in fact, 27 misses. Same number of straight missed threes by the Houston Rockets in Game 7 of the 2018 Western Conference Finals.
Yeah.
I'm sure you, as a basketball sicko, remember that game vividly.
Yeah, that was... Yeah.
When I saw the stat, I was like, that's got to be close. I was like, was it 27?
Yeah.
I was so happy that I was right.
That's crazy.
But yeah, I don't think it's the kind of thing you panic over, but it's like, wow, I do not want to see that again.
No, you don't. And I get it.
I think if you're pacing for that, you got to stop shooting the 3 midway through the game if you're, charting that poorly.
Yeah. Well, in the first quarter, they shot 0 for 9 from 3. The second quarter, they shot 1 for 10 from 3.
Here's my thing.
Yeah.
At halftime, let's cool it.
Well, I'd like to say that they did, but they came out in the third quarter shooting 3 for 9 from 3.
I mean, they still shot 14 more. I mean, I don't know. If it's a big part of your identity, you feel like you can right the ship. Coaches know more than me. Players know more than me. I'm not trying to tell them how to, execute their offense. It's also not rocket science that at some point when something's not working,
Yeah, and I get it, but I think Kohler had 8 3-point attempts. That's a little much in my liking. Granted, I'm not the coach of this team, but that's her game. She takes the 3-point shot. She's a good 3-point shooter. You are going to live with her shooting 3 for 8 from 3.
I mean, so did Jasmine Fern.
Yes, at the same time, James Fern, in 13 minutes, got 8 3-point shots up and only took 3-point shots. Yes. I don't know how I feel as much about that one, especially in only 13 minutes of play, but Fern has shown before that at 6 foot tall, she can let it fly and knock down the shots. But she's kind of struggled this season, and that's the problem, which we will talk about in the next game here in a second. Especially from 3 on the season, shooting 7 for 28 for 25% from 3. I think when we talk about pushing the offense, especially from behind the arc, I think she's kind of pushing it right now. And not in a bad way, in a way that she's trying to shoot herself out of a slump from 3. So I'd like to see her cut back a little bit, 2 or 3 a game, until she finds that rhythm, and then ramp it up, especially going into MAC play, so that she can really add that spark that the team needs.
Because we've seen her have those kind of efficient games. I mean, I don't think it's any question about capability.
No, it's not, because she's a good 3-point shooter. I think right now she's just kind of pressing the issue, and I think that's a mix of they haven't been home in a long time to play in the Stro. They have been on the road against top-tier opponents, especially Southern Carolina. And I think once they get home, once they get a couple of games, they have Defiance on their schedule here coming up soon. Kentucky State, Purdue, Fort Wayne, Lourdes College, a couple of D3 schools here, NAIA schools. I think that's going to be perfect for them to really figure everything out, kind of settle themselves down with just a home stand. I think that'll be really big for this team.
Yeah, I mean, in particular, the stretch from the 7th to the 16th of December, Defiance College, Lourdes, Lemoyne.
Yes.
I mean, that should be 3 wins and some better-looking stats.
Yes, especially Defiance and Lemoyne. Defiance and Lourdes, both NAIA schools, smaller, non-scholarship athlete schools where they're there to play, and they cannot be given athletic scholarships. They can be given other types of scholarships, but not athletic ones. So these are much different. I mean, very different. Think of the Worcester game they played very first week, or that exhibition game. That's kind of what we're looking at here. So I'd expect them to have much better stats. I'd expect them to really settle in, especially in their first game at home with the home fans behind them. That's going to be a big boost. That really can help swing things. So I think they're going to be fine. I just think right now, all these games on the road, flying to Alaska to play, I think they're just kind of out of it. I think they need some home cooking, and I think getting back in the show is going to be good for them.
Just need some home cooking. I like that. That's a good analogy. The women's basketball team will get back to action next on November 30th, a week from today, when they host the Purdue Fort Wayne Mastodons. By the way, one of the best mascots ever.
Yes.
Shout out to Horizon League mascot powerhouse, Purdue Fort Wayne. Great mascot. But anyway, the Mastodons will visit the Falcons Sunday, November 30th, 2 p.m. It'll be just a little bit before this show. Falcon Radio will have a live broadcast of that from the Falcon Media Sports Network. Pre-game kicking off 15 minutes prior at 1:45, so check that out. On the other side of the hardwood, let's talk about the men's team.
Yeah, let's do that. They're in a little bit of a slump right now. I know we talked about how the women's team is in a slump. The men's team are in maybe a bigger slump. I believe it's 4 for 30 of the last 2 games combined for 3 in Davidson and home against William & Mary, where they made 1 of 12 against Davidson.
These kids shooting the 3 ball. Back in my day, we didn't have a 3 ball. I mean, I feel like the old man yelling at the cloud, looking at both the box scores for the women's and men's teams.
And I completely understand it. The only thing I will say about Bowling Green, in both games, it just seems to be one of those things where the 3 is just not falling from, especially in Davidson. You have Shackelford against Davidson, who hits 2 of 3. Towns went 1 for 4. Myar Wohl, who's been one of your best scorers off the bench, went 0 for 3 from 3. Javon Ruffin went 0 of 1. Makai Leach, who does get some good run off the bench every once in a while, 0 for 1 from 3. Not really his game, but you'd like to see it get better from the 3-point range. But they've just kind of struggled hitting threes recently. And I don't know what it is that's going to fix everything, but they have to figure it out. They can't just stop shooting the threes. They have to continue to play within the offense to really up it. And that's just going to take continuing to play the way that they've been playing. They have the shooters. They have very good shooters, but they are just in a really weird slump right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the William and Mary game in particular. Shackelford 0 for 4. Mm-hmm. I do think partially because of just the sheer volume of talent they do have. They're in a different situation from the women's team where I think they're still trying to find their identity and who their players are. Not that the men's team completely has that ironed out, but in the sense of the women's team knows, kind of who their 2 go-tos are. You've got Paige Kohler, you've got Janae Donahue. After that, it gets a little murkier. This team is Javante Campbell's kind of your guy, but you've also got everybody else who's solid. I mean, Shackelford, Thomas, Towns, Glover. I mean, these are, Myra Wall. I mean, these are all guys who've, already proven in this young season, Javon Ruffin, that they can be significant contributors. And, because of that, I'm not surprised to not see somebody having as many 3-point attempts as, Paige Kohler had, for example.
Yes.
But still, going 0 for anything.
Yeah.
0 for 4 for Shackelford, 0 for 3 for Justin Thomas.
Yes. 0 for 2 for Towns.
Javon Ruffin had 1 make, but 1 for 5, not awesome.
Not great, yeah.
Makes his overall shooting percentage look a lot worse than it actually was.
Yes, yeah. And I want to correct something before we continue. They were 6 for 33 in their last 2 games combined.
6 for 33.
6 for 33. A little bit better than 4 for 30, but still 18% in 2 games. It's
not ideal.
Not ideal. Not nowhere near ideal. But the big thing is, and I'll say it now and I'll say it again, they were in both these games because of the way that they play overall, especially that Davidson game. An 87-91 loss to Davidson. They fought back in that game really hard. And it was a full court press that gave Davidson fits the entire time, including a 20-something point run to bring them back within 1 point. And then they had to start fouling Davidson with the time remaining and hoping that they would start missing some free throws, and they just didn't. But that's basketball. They're gonna hit some runs. They're gonna find some really weird shooting slumps. But them being in these games is a very good sign to me, just as somebody who watches the team play night in and night out, that regardless of they can't make a three, they can't, they're not having that kind of luck, they're going to continue to fight the entire game, and they'll fight their way back into a match, and eventually they'll start hitting the threes again. They're not going to shoot 18% all season from 3. They're going to start hitting these threes, and when they do, they'll start stacking wins, and stacking wins against some pretty good opponents. I mean, Bucknell, VMI, both on the docket here in the tournament down in Fort Myers. They're going to travel to Kansas State. That one's probably going to be a little bit more difficult. See a familiar face, though, Marcus Johnson down in Kansas State. And then they have Utah Valley, who's going to have an interesting team this year. But they have a nice little spot where they have, on December 7th, Aquinas, Chicago State. They'll play their first MAC game against Ohio, and then they'll face Siena Heights at home, which is a great little stretch where they have a good Ohio team that they travel to, but they have 2 D3 schools that they can face, that they can really figure everything back out.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it inspires some optimism. You don't expect those things to just be fixed overnight. They might come out of the next game look a little flat in the shooting department still. But to their credit, having those kind of lower caliber teams on the upcoming docket here definitely conducive to having that time to right the ship. So I will not be surprised at all if if what you're saying exactly,
especially
comes
with
to fruition.
Todd Simon as a coach, they've always played just really great defense under him, and even when they're not shooting good, they can play defense. You have Javonte Campbell leading your team as a defensive stopper. He's going to get steals. He's going to help get the team out and running. So
yeah. Anything that anyone you're expecting to really stand out outside of Javonte Campbell is like, hey, this is a guy who's going to be as, well known of a name for this team as Javonte Campbell?
I'd say Josiah Shackelford. The coaching staff is very high on him. He's played very well off of Campbell as a floor stretcher. He's 6'4", great shooter. Obviously, he struggled, as has the rest of the team. But he's kind of flies under the radar as just that 2 guard for this team. As the season continues to go, continue to watch him really make his name. And Myar Wool, we've talked about him a little bit, great off the bench. I mean, last year he was in the ASUN with Eastern Kentucky. He was their 6th man of the year. He committed to Bradley before Joseph Kayat left to go play in Lebanon for with Bowling Green. He then committed to Bowling Green after that. And you can see why he was committed to Bradley. I mean, Bradley's a great basketball school. They have a great open court kind of 5-out way of playing. And that's why he was going there, because they play the way he plays. He's a great shooter. He can create his own shot. He's good in the mid-range. He's just an overall offensive hub that they can play through.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see just the diversity of skill sets that the Falcons have, in this transfer era brought in to the team, last year and into this year. I haven't thought candidly very much about Marcus Johnson since he transferred out of the program, but just like so many different skill sets, and it's really exciting to see them kind of meshing. And in particular, I'm really excited. I mean, those two guys you mentioned, Shackelford, already kind of off to a hot start. Yeah. Really exciting to see guys of this caliber, starting to find their stride here, because it's something we've been kind of hungry for a little bit.
Yeah.
And just a little stability and continuity goes a long way.
Yes, and you see the way when Coach Simon goes out and finds a player, he looks for character first and foremost for all his players. You talk to these players, they're very upbeat. They're always enjoyable to talk to. The media, they're happy. You can tell even after a loss, they're like, they understand what they have to change. They're ready to do it. They're getting back into the film sessions, into studying, into practice. After wins, I talked to assistant coach Anthony Stacy, and he said Javon Ruffin, even after a win, is right back in the room, ready to study, ready to learn, and he's going to be a senior this year. So this is going to be his last year. He can't play anymore. He spent 3 years in Colorado. He's now in Bowling Green. He has a lot of players who are veterans who like to learn, and from a high level. Besides Javon Ruffin, he has Justin Thomas, who played last year in the ACC with Florida State. He's never going to be a high scorer for the team. Rebounds, assists, steals, blocks. He's a stat stuffer without scoring. You watch him play, he's never going to stand out. He's not going to make many mistakes. He's going to get blocks. He's going to pack the lane. He's going to pass the ball. He's going to rebound. It's very interesting to see all these players kind of mesh their games together. After being almost like having different role players step up and take those next level plays.
And, something that we haven't really gotten to watch to a significant extent under, Todd Simon's tenure is, players that he brought here get to really embrace and fulfill their roles.
Mm-hmm.
Last year would have been the closest in his, now 3 years, but with all the injuries, there was just no continuity. It was a toss-up who was playing any given week. Javante Campbell played half the season with a dang broken hand,
and then finished the season with another broken hand.
Ridiculous also.
And broke the season steal record.
Legend. But regardless, just a lot of really, really exciting ball. Squad is kind of loaded. I think. I think very deceptively so. I really feel like the teams that Bowling Green has had across their sports this year, amongst the ones that have had the ability to be competitive, which is most. I think this is maybe the one that has flown the most under the radar. Men's soccer, we expected to be competitive. They didn't make the tournament, but, the striker duo was, the thing you look to. Yeah. Women's soccer, perennial, competitive, enough said. Football has underwhelmed, but, we expected them to be somewhat competitive. And they've competed even in a lot of their losses. Beat Toledo, there's the sorts of things you could point to. Volleyball, we knew they were going to be competitive. Men's basketball, I think there was a good idea, kind of a good vibe around, okay, things are kind of moving in the right direction. We've got guys here, they're healthy. Javante Campbell's coming back, but I think they're really set up for something special here. There's a lot between the men's and women's schedule. There's a lot of basketball in Bowling Green in the month of December. There's a ton of games.
There's a lot of times to play.
I know you're just
I'm ready.
drooling at the thought
I'm
of.
So
You're
ready
super
for more
pumped.
basketball, especially Mac playing the show. For the men's team, they usually don't get as big of a crowd as the women's team. They have been drawing a great crowd this season. I think a lot of people kind of are starting to figure out, Coach Simon's really starting to bring some good players here.
He's starting to buy back in, which is huge for the team, too.
Absolutely.
Huge for your home field advantage.
It's not just head coach Simon. Associate head coach Lou Rousnair Jr., he's got such a big pull. We have got a commit for next year who's from East Lansing, projected to be one of the top players in the state of Michigan, and he's committed to Bowling Green, right out from under Izzo's nose. You don't do that if you don't have a little bit of pull over here.
Yeah.
And so, last year was the number 8 player in Mackay Leach in the state of Ohio, one of the top players in the state of Michigan coming in next year. They're building something here, and it may not look exactly as pretty as an Akron basketball team, who will have the players return every year, and then go out and get Evan Mahaffey from Ohio State, who played solid minutes at a Big Ten school. But they're going to bring a team that's going to compete. They're going to play defense, and that's where they're going to really hang their hat on. but their offense is going to be steps better than it was last year.
Yeah, I think the opportunity to play this many games, especially against some weaker opponents, in front of the home crowd, right as classes for the semester are coming to an end too, people are trying to find things to do. It's getting dark outside earlier. There's a huge opportunity for this team to build so much momentum going into MAC play, really establishing their identity, establishing the names with the fans, even if, some of the newer players who they might not be familiar with, rip off some wins, fix some efficiency issues. I think there's a really good chance that this team just comes absolutely roaring into 2026.
Right. And I think it's going to start with that Ohio Bobcats game. December 20th, just 5 days before Christmas. They're going to travel to Athens, Ohio, who just
Renovated?
Yes, that's the word. Renovated their stadium. They're going to have a new basketball court. And you get the first MAC game against them on the road in a new stadium. This is your chance right here. Make a statement against Ohio, a team that last year came to Bowling Green and beat us after coming back. So you have a chance to do a really good job of showing this is a different team. We're different. This is not the Bowling Green of last season who has been injured, who's had kind of struggled offensively at times. But this is going to be a team that's going to be formidable. And as of right now, I know it's very early in the season, and they've played some very good teams, but the Ohio Bobcats are 1-4, with only a win over Illinois State. But they have played very good teams. St. Mary's and Louisville, if you keep up with basketball, obviously Louisville, great team. St. Mary's, West Coast Conference, is usually second in command behind Gonzaga. So, and they'll give them a fight for the West Coast Conference every year. So they've had a very good and tested non-conference schedule right now, and they have more to come. They have St. Bonaventure, who this year, very good team. Obviously, Adrian Wojnarowski now works with the team, so they have a good pull there. They got to play Marshall. They're going to play George Mason, who they'll have a good team. That's another A10 team, same division as Davidson. So they're going to be a very well weathered program just in terms of high-level competition. And Bowling Green has kind of done that same type of thing, but with exhibition games against Dayton and Michigan State.
Yeah, all this suffice to say, now's the time to buy your Bowling Green basketball stock. You're hearing it from us. I think that there should be a lot more hype than there is, but I think that the hype is going to catch up pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think they're not going to go on those losing streaks of last year. I think they have a very schedule that favors them with kind of a top-loaded Miami, UMass, Kent State, and Akron, and then they go to Eastern. They have Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan, Toledo, Buffalo, Central again, Ball State, and then you have that break for the Sun Belt Conference. You're going to get your top of the top teams in Miami, UMass, who is new to the conference this year, but last year played in the A10. They may have lost all of their top scorers because they're moving to the MAC. Same coach, same system. That's going to be a good team. I'm very interested to see how it turns out for them in MAC play, just because they're an A10 team. That's an A10 coaching staff, A10 facilities. That's going to be a fun team. And I believe they beat Boston College just a couple days ago. They're going to be a good team. They're going to really give the MAC a run for their money. They're going to give Kent State and Akron that run for their money too.
And that's so exciting too when you think about, the pitifulness of their impact on the football field. Seeing that shake up in the conference is really, really always really exciting and interesting and thought provoking. And this feels like the first best case of us getting to see this.
Well, I think we know Northern Illinois is leaving for the Mountain West in football, but every other conference, every other team is going to Horizon League. I think Bowling Green made a really good choice of taking UMass, who was a solid.
The MAC, you mean?
Yeah. Adding UMass to the MAC, who was a solid A10 team in basketball. They were always going to be a struggling football program. They probably should do what some of the other A10 teams do and kind of set them down a division, because Dayton has a football team, but they play in the FCS level. And they're going to be Bowling Green and all the MAC schools. Their best chance of making the tournament is because of basketball. That's where they're going to make their name. Obviously, everybody knows football is the king, but how likely is it for the MAC to make it to the college football playoffs?
Right.
Getting a team like UMass, who played in the A-10, has that kind of energy, can bring a lot of new guys in, new eyes to the teams in the back, make a run in the MAC championship, kind of get there and show, look, this MAC's got a basketball team. MAC's got a lot of good basketball teams. Kent State, Akron, UMass, Toledo. Bowling Green's always kind of been there as a team. They're looking to get over the hump. I think this is a good move. Maybe not football-wise because they're not adding the greatest football team, but basketball-wise, it is getting a great team to come in.
Yeah, I think the conference games are going to be really telling for UMass aside, but also just another really strong measuring stick for the Falcons this season. So that'll be an exciting one coming up for sure. The Falcons will continue their regular season play with the Fort Myers tip-off when they take on Bucknell and VMI in Fort Myers, Florida. Monday, November 24th at 12 p.m. tip-off will be the Bucknell matchup for the men's basketball team. As always, you can check out bgfalconmedia.com for our written recap of that, as well as other content around the men's basketball team.
I do want to add one thing about this tournament.
Absolutely.
Todd Simon has won this tournament before. When it was first created, when he was at Southern Utah University, he beat Bowling Green to win the championship, and now he's back in it with Bowling Green this time. So it's just a little, this is something Todd knows how to win it. Bowling Green's the only school that's been it twice now. So
some familiarity there, definitely.
Some familiarity.
Interesting familiarity for the team and for Simon. Well, look at that. Well, we'll have to see how that one goes. We'll keep up, as always, on bgfalconmedia.com, where we'll have that recap. We're going to go ahead and pivot and go to the ice. Talk about the hockey team, which had kind of a mixed weekend. So basically, you have a split weekend. They're up in St. Paul, Minnesota, taking on St. Thomas Tommies. That's a lot of Thomas. That's a lot of Tom.
Way too many T's.
It's a lot of Tommies. A 3-2 overtime win Friday. Solid. Get the actual, the extra points there. Norm Morneau, Dominic Ryman, and Quinn Emerson, the Falcons' top line, each of them contributed a point in the win on Friday. Stuff you like to see,
yes.
A lot of good continuity. Norm Morneau, in particular, having a really, really strong first campaign for the Falcons. I mean, after several multi-goal games, I mean, he's just, really, really getting it done. I mean, clear and obvious, why they expected him to be a big contributor. Not to interrupt, I forgot to touch on this before we continue.
Oh, yes.
Toledo currently leads 21-18 in the third set of the MAC championship for volleyball. So if they are able to hold on to this lead, they're going to potentially go up 2-1 here, push the Broncos to put their back against elimination in the fourth set. So we'll keep updated on that as that goes. But back to the ice, because I got sidetracked. Just, really strong performance on Friday. 3-2 overtime. Once again, another clutch win. I mean, being able to perform in overtime is so important to me because that's relevant to tournament type games. This is your back against the wall. It's like, oh, snap, it's just over like that.
It's one mistake and
it institutes that level of kind of seriousness. And the one mistake, that's a really good way to say it. So definitely good to see. Saturday just did not go their way. They lost 6-2 Saturday. And I am no Ben Korak, and I am no Nathan Burkett. Wow, what a turnaround. I've got to just question a little bit, what you're looking at from a goalie standpoint. And the thing is, Jacob Steinman has played well. Tyler Palmer ended up coming in relief of Steinman at the 15-minute mark of the third period on Saturday. The Tommies just kind of went crazy in that one, candidly. Both teams only had one goal in the first. St. Thomas scored another one in the second to take that lead, and then they outscored the Falcons 4-1 in the third period.
Yeah, that's rough. You just kind of look at the stats, and the goalie, 14 shots attempted against him in the first, 13 in the second, and then obviously he gets subbed out in the third, but he has 4 already against him. So that's got to be a rough kind of a night for him as well, just having so many shots taken against him. So I don't know if that's also a defensive line thing, or if there's just a change that they made to see if something works a little bit better after taking that first win. So.
Yeah, and it felt a little more committal from the goalie perspective too, with Steinman, getting the start on Friday, and I mean playing well in that 3-2. If you hold your opponent to 2 goals or less, generally speaking, you're gonna have a pretty good chance of taking points. I mean, that's a pretty accepted convention. Ben Korak has said it a million times because it's pretty true.
Yeah.
So I mean, nothing to be upset about with Fridays really from that perspective, but. 6, I mean, just kind of snowballed. It just.
I think that could also be a big thing. It just kind of snowballs on you. You start having a bad game, you kind of get in your own head, and then it just all starts to snowball even more.
Yeah, and I mean, the span in that third period before which the substitution was made, you've got 2:46 into the third, Hayes Hundley scores for the Tommies. 4:19, so not even a full 2 minutes later, Jake Percini scores. 5:34 on a power play for the Tommies, Lucas Van Vliet scores. So you've got 3 goals by the Tommies in the span of 2.5 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean,
one of them being a power play, which
one of them being a power play. I mean, the shorthanded. You can't
That's
point
a little
fingers
rough.
there. I mean, you're gonna lose some of those. You're gonna give a goal on a power play at some point. And the last goal to make it 6 versus 5, an empty netter. Again, the situation calls for pulling the goalie in favor of an extra skater there. So that's
that's gonna happen.
Fine. It's gonna happen. And getting a goal in the third there for the Falcons too. Sure, you're not gonna be upset about that. Dalton Norris able to connect on the power play. But again, to me, just you can't. I mean, that's something that this team is going to have to just eliminate from their vocabulary.
Yeah.
You cannot give up 3 goals in 2 minutes and 48 seconds.
No,
I mean, under no circumstances. I don't care if you're playing 3-on-5. I mean, that's just
you can't. Yeah, and it's rough because you let that first goal go, and you're like, okay, we can fix this. Kind of get the mentality back, and that second one goes through, and then you're kind of scrambling, and then that third one, which is a power play, then you're just completely out of it at that point.
Yeah, and another thing to keep in mind too, in the CCHA standings right now, there's been a good number of games played at this point. The least conference games played by any team is St. Thomas's 5, in which they are 2-2-1 right now. But at the end of the day, you're sitting in a good spot. Through 10 games for the Falcons played, they got 19 points. So I mean, they're taking points pretty consistently. But it's just a question of, are they able to eliminate from themselves those lapses? Because, you can be as good of a team as you want, but if you give up a span like that in any important game, a good team that you're playing against, because it's a tournament-type setting, is going to take advantage of that, and you're not.
Well, any team. At that point, if you're going to let up goals at that kind of a rate, any team can beat you at that point.
Right.
But I think the best thing is they can kind of look at this now, early in the season, relatively speaking. They've already plenty of games. They've already played CCHA games. But they can look at this now and figure it out, because they got a lot of hockey left to play. So they can worry about it, kind of figure out what it is. The coaches can look at it, the players can look at it, and everyone can kind of sit down, figure it out, and kind of work it out of whatever is happening in that kind of situation.
Yeah, they can definitely relax. There's nothing to be
they're not
losing sleep over just yet. You're still
not.
Sitting in second in the CCHA standings right now. Bemidji State still holding on that number 1 spot with their 23 points through 10 games played. But Bowling Green, the only other team with 10 points, so inflating their total a little bit. When Minnesota State has played their 2 games to catch up on the total games played, you'd have to think they're probably gonna close that gap realistically. But you're still in that tight pack. Minnesota State, Michigan Tech, Augustana, St. Thomas with 7 and only 5 games played. So there's plenty more points for them to potentially get too.
Yes.
Still competitive as always. CCHA is going to be the CCHA.
Yep.
You're not sweating if you're Bowling Green. I think you're happy where you are, to be honest. But I do think if at some point down the line we start to see defensive / goaltending collapses
like this again, then
we're gonna look back to this one and be like, oh, hey, there was that elephant in the room.
We're gonna start looking at it kind of why was that not looked at earlier? We knew this was happening. How did we not take a step back, look at what was happening, and figure it out?
Yeah, and personally, I don't think that's gonna happen.
No, I think the coaching staff here in Bowling Green they're probably already working on it right now.
Yeah,
it's
and
something that they're going to have out of them by the end of November, going into Northern Michigan into December. I think they'll probably have that already out of them.
And they've got a nice stretch here too. Princeton, not a conference matchup this Friday and Saturday, November 28th and 29th. And then you open, you open December with more conference play. Northern Michigan, the outright worst team in the CCHA right now, visiting you at the Slater, and 2 back-to-back home series as well. Princeton and Northern Michigan both coming to the Slater Family Ice Arena. So I do think there's in a similar vein to what I was saying about, there's a lot of basketball coming up this December, man. Hockey having back-to-back home series here, and then that exhibition game against the development team for USA Hockey. Yeah. And then starting the new year, Ohio State, you're going to spend one away, but then you've got them back at home too. You get a lot of home games. 6 out of your next 7.
Wow.
6 out of your next 7 games are going to be played at the Slater. One of them is going to be the exhibition. But still, for number one, for a hockey town, just from a fan perspective, that's electric.
That's great. That's
Love
great.
It.
That's what you want.
But for a team that puts up a performance that's a little bit vexing, specifically just on the number of goals allowed there, it's a great time to work the kinks out. And I think that Coach Willie is as
he's shown that he's
shown that he's as primed as any to make the fixes he needs to. So I have very little concern in that department. You took points over the weekend. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
Nothing to be to hang your hat sadly about.
No, not
coming
at
out of
all.
the weekend for that one. Do you have anything else on that one?
No, I think they're gonna fix it. I don't think we're gonna see this happen again. It's gonna happen. It happens to every team. You're gonna try to hammer it out to make sure it happens at the smallest possible times. So if it's gonna happen, it happens to every team where mental lapses and they give up goals. But I think this Bowling Green team, I think they're coached well enough that it's gonna happen. Not too much more.
Good teams make mistakes. Great teams learn from mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely, they do.
The Falcons will continue their hockey season this Friday, November 28th, with a 7:07 puck drop against Princeton in the Slater Family Ice Arena. Falcon Media Sports Network's Ben Korak will certainly be on that call here on WBGU 88.1 FM, your home for Falcon hockey, about 15 minutes prior to game time for that one. So check that out, as always, here on WBGU 88.1 FM. Written coverage will also be on bgfalconmedia.com, and you can check us out on Twitter X at BG_FMSN for live updates and more with all of your Falcon athletics. That's going to do it for us for our headliner sports discussions. There's about 10 minutes left of this show. We're going to step away real quick for station identification, but when we come back, we are going to throw around one more fun discussion topic between Foster and I to wrap this up. So don't go anywhere, because you're listening to the Zig Zone on WBGU 88.1 FM.
You are listening to Falcon Media Sports Network coverage on WBGU 88.1 FM in Bowling Green, Ohio.
All right, back here on the Zig Zone, Holden Ruck and Foster Rostock from the Falcon Media Sports Network. We've got another update on the MAC Volleyball Championship match happening right now between Toledo and Western Michigan. Foster, you want to go ahead with that one?
Yeah, Bowling Green. Sorry, too much Bowling Green talk. Toledo Rockets.
Never too much.
Nah, that's true. Beat the Western Michigan Broncos in the third set, 25-21. They're into the fourth set now, but that gives the Rockets a 2-1 lead in the MAC championship for volleyball right now.
Toledo 1 set away from winning their first MAC championship in volleyball for the tournament in program history. Under first-year head coach Brian Wright.
That's a big step right there.
That's
huge.
That's why you make a hire like that.
That's right. That's why you make those flash hires. Yeah,
absolutely. To wrap this up, I want to ask you, of the teams whose seasons have concluded or whose seasons are right on the edge of concluding, you know, football's right there, who do you think has the most... I mean, you could pick, like, you know, players or, like, a specific coach, the team as a whole. Who has the most pressure going into next year? Football, volleyball, men's soccer, women's soccer.
I almost want to go men's soccer just because you had the two strikers. You had, you know, two of the top, Painter and Terry, offensive players in the Missouri Valley Conference, which is where they play soccer. They're not MAC teams.
MVC.
The MVC. Got to keep the M, but they couldn't even crack it into a very easy-to-make Missouri Valley Conference soccer tournament schedule, where they take 6 of the top 8 teams, and they were in 7th. They couldn't make that. I do think that it's men's soccer, because we just watched women's soccer make the championship, and although they lost it, they made it as a 6 seed and barely winning MAC games, but tying them instead. So I think there's that. I think football, it's first year for head coach Eddie George, and he is on his 4th-string quarterback. So I think he's I think I can give him enough of a pass for that. And it's the same thing with volleyball. A lot of injuries. Made the tournament still. Won a game. You'd like to see them go farther than that, but I'd say men's soccer is the one who I'm looking at the most with, okay, now that you don't have Painter, now that you don't have Terry, how are you going to play soccer?
And you have a really good point, too. Something about the Missouri Valley Conference, because there's, you know, it's a smaller conference a little bit. You know, you have less conference games, and there's the argument that it makes it harder because there's less margin for error. But I would also argue there's less... You only have to be good, like, less times. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you have to perform your best less times, because if you win 4 of your conference games, that's like most of the conference already, and you're, you know, sneaking your way in there.
Yeah.
And then you can worry about, you know, the tournament when it comes to the tournament. 2024 Evansville, a 5 seed, as I recall.
Yeah.
You know,
all you have to do is make it to the tournament. Western Michigan, we talked about it. They won Missouri Valley Conference this year.
and they
were
weren't nearly as impressive as they've been in
6th
other years in the regular season, and they were the 6th seed.
They were the 6th seed. They were the last team in, pushing Bowling Green out, who was the 7th seed.
Brutal.
But they go and win it. So
I do think, I think I'm with you on that too. I do think that they're the most pressure. The one thing that I think could argue against that is like player turnover. But you look at the other 3 programs for football. I don't think, unless you see an absolute catastrophe, I don't even think a head coach's second year, especially in football, is ever like
right. He hasn't had his first full recruiting class.
He hasn't had his first full off season even.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he got there so late.
He was a late hire, late leave by our former head coach. I give him some time.
You look at women's soccer. I mean, elevating the standard from the previous year, you know, working back towards, you know, the expectation of this program, you know, the Jimmy Walker era program expectations, you know, nothing to dunk on there. Certainly not a shot at Coach Eric Nichols, you know,
Absolutely
very
not.
accomplished
Great
coach who's, you know, clearly kept BG competitive for many years across 2 conferences. But, you know, you look at the situation for Alex Del Piombo, first-year head coach. You made the tournament against all odds. You won a round. I don't think there's anything. She has nothing to apologize to fans for or, like, regret from this year.
No, that team played great under her. That you could see, even with the injuries, they were playing every game, every set, every point was the hardest they could play at all times. And I just think the way that the men's team kind of fizzled out at the end, they just couldn't get those single wins. They couldn't get a stop here in the biggest moments. I think that's the team that next year, if they're struggling again, then you start having to really start asking questions. Yeah,
it does, I think, start to drift towards that Herder conversation a little bit. If, you know, you can't miss the tournament 2 years in a row and not start to have uncomfortable conversations at least.
Not. Yeah.
And I don't think that's the direction it's going to go. I think they're going to round it. I think they're going to be back there next year. I think they're going to figure it out.
Yeah, but I think they have good enough coach, good enough players. I think they're going to turn around. I mean, that defensive line and goalie, all new players this year.
Yeah. But just given this season, though, I do think I was hoping to stir a little more controversy, but I think you hit the nail on the head. I also think that's the correct answer.
Yeah, I don't like. You keep up with soccer. You go into the preseason. Bennett Painter, Trace Terry, they're returning. How far can this team go in Missouri Valley Conference play? And then they just struggle from the get-go. And so I can only think that the only team I could name for that would be the men's soccer team.
Yeah, we'll circle back on this one probably in the spring when a couple more seasons have wrapped up, and we'll have to see if any other sports that finish their 25, 26 year give us a different answer on this one. But we'll sit with that one for now, and I think that's going to do it here.
I think that was a good one, yeah.
For us from the Zig Zone. So, Foster Rost, I appreciate you being here,
Anytime,
holding it down
anytime.
with me. The two-man show, second week in a row. We'll have to hope to have a full studio back next week now that tournament season kind of wrapping up here for volleyball. But that's going to do it for us here from the Zig Zone. I want to say a couple of thank yous, as always, to our content and production directors, Lucas Kleinmeyer and Tyler Kavelitz, as well as Carl Smith, our Falcon Media faculty advisor. As always, you can catch the re-recording or the rebroadcast of this show on YouTube at bgfalconmedia.com or at bgfalconmedia on YouTube. And check out bgfalconmedia.com for all of our other content around Falcon athletics as they happen. That's going to do it for us here. For Foster Rosti and myself, Holden Ruck, good night, and I Ziggy.